Hello, good afternoon. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. It's great to be back, and it's great to have you join me today. I have a good topic, and it's such a good topic that I have been promoting it for a while, and that is ways to get a work permit in the United States. There's a lot of confusion about work permits and work visas and how do you get it and whether you qualify. And I want to try to make this topic as simple and understandable to you as possible. Now, there are many ways to get a work permit, but you need to know one thing first. There is a difference between a work permit and an employment based visa, also referred to as a work visa, right? When you're outside of the United States, you're going to apply for a visa to come to the United States. And there are so many different types of visas. Those visas are going to be based on the job position you have, your employer, what you are bringing to the table, whether it's temporary, and if it's permanent, then it would be, if it's permanent and you're outside of the United States, you wouldn't be getting a work permit until you actually get the benefit, the permanent residence to come into the United States. Then there's also the work permit. Now, the work permit is for individuals who are already in the United States. And yes, there are options for individuals who may be here without status. Even if you cross the border without permission, there are options. It doesn't mean that every single person who's here without status is going to qualify, but I do want to know that there is hope, and I want to talk about some of those ways so that if you do see where you may qualify or you have an option, you can get in touch with me. We can talk about how you qualify and get started right away. So, with the work permit, that's what I'm going to focus on today. How ways that you can get the work permit. Now, usually when you're applying for the work permit, you're applying for it while you're waiting for, while you're applying for another immigration benefit. So, for example, if you're here and you're applying for permanent residence, then you can apply for the work permit at the same time in some cases. So, in relation to the adjustment of status process, that's a process of applying for a green card while you're in the United States. You can also apply for a work permit. You can also apply for a work permit when you're applying for asylum. So if you are in fear of returning to the country, to your own country, because you're being targeted, and you're being targeted based on a characteristic that you hold that you can't change. So based on your identity, based on a particular group that you identify with, then while you're applying for asylum here, you have to be in the United States to get asylum. You then can apply for the work permit after some days of applying. Right now, it's after 180 days, you do qualify to get the work permit. Then there's VAWA, right? You'll see me talk about VAWA very often. Most of my videos are going to be about VAWA. Now, if you're here, even if you're here, if you're here without papers, you may have overstayed your visa, or you may have even crossed the border without permission, and you may be here stuck here with a relative who's mistreating you. That relative could be a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, a parent, if you're under 25, or a U.S. citizen son or daughter who's 21 and older. And if they are mistreating you, then you could qualify for your own work permit through what's called VAWA, and this is for all genders. When you apply for the work permit, you get the work permit while you're waiting for your process to be completed. And that's because at the same time we're applying for your VAWA status, we're applying for your permanent residence. So you do get the benefit of getting that relief while you wait. And so there are other options, right? So for example, you'll hear me talking about being the victim of trafficking. Now, hear me out. I want you, a lot of people start out not even realizing that they were the victim of trafficking. There's labor trafficking and there's sex trafficking. And in this case, this is why I educate individuals about the different forms of trafficking, because this also presents an option for individuals to get relief while they're here. Now, being the victim of trafficking does not necessarily mean that you're tied up somewhere in a basement, being forced to walk the streets or being forced to do acts, sexual acts against your will. That definitely does count as trafficking. However, and if you've been through that, you would likely qualify for relief, immigration relief, as a victim of trafficking. Trafficking comes in different forms. And one of those is, for example, if what I like to say to summarize this, to give you an idea of what it looks like, is if you're in a situation where you're being used and abused and you feel stuck. Maybe you're being manipulated to stay in the situation. Maybe you're being straight up threatened. It could be an employer, it could be an acquaintance, it could be a partner, it could even be a spouse. The employer, the spouse, the relative, they don't have to themselves be a US citizen or legal permanent resident. But if they're putting you in a position where they feel like you need to stay in their home, you need to do work for them, and they tell you things like, where are you going to go? You can't leave. ICE is going to get you. They manipulate you. They make you feel fearful to leave the situation, even though you want to. This is a form of trafficking under immigration law. And so if you're in a situation like that, it could have been a boyfriend. I have had cases where individuals have been lured here. It could be a boyfriend, it could be a girlfriend, it could be a husband, it could be a wife, it could be an acquaintance, it could be a stranger who you found yourself in the situation with. If and I have worked on cases like this, and we have been successful to get our clients benefits. And the benefit here is that you're able to get your work permit for 4 years, as well as your social security number. With every work permit, you get a social security number, by the way, the ability to stay in the United States, and then apply for permanent residence. After 3 years, you may be able to apply before then, just depending on how your case is managed and what you do during your case. But if you're in a situation like this, there is relief even there. So you don't necessarily have to just have the family members, but if you are in particular situations where you feel trapped by someone else, no, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter that they didn't hit you, they didn't tie you up. They may have used other things like some coercive types of approaches against you to keep you in that situation. That can be considered a form of trafficking, and you need to get assistance. We can assist you to get the status you need here. So, in a nutshell, remember that the work permit is for individuals who are already here, who have made the move to apply for a certain immigration benefit or relief. You cannot get up and just apply for a work permit without first seeing if you qualify for a particular immigration benefit or form of relief, applying for that form of relief and or benefit, and then also getting the work, either applying for the work permit along with the relief or benefit, or applying afterwards. For example, with asylum, you do have to apply afterwards, but they have reduced it from 1 year to six months after filing the asylum. And we do file the asylum application with online as well. So that is also a big thing that we do, is we focus on electronic filing because it's faster. There's reduced chances of rejection there. But these are, and also there's TPS. So there's also temporary protected status. This is for specific countries, though. For example, Haiti, Venezuela, and there's a certain deadline on these applications. If you're not here, so say each country has a designated date and time to apply. Right now, we have Ethiopia that qualifies. Ethiopia is a new one that has been added to the list. Sudan, there's Venezuela, there's Haiti, there's Syria. So there are a number of countries where if you're the citizen of that country, you qualify. Jamaica and other, if you're not on the list, you don't qualify. So Jamaicans, unfortunately, don't qualify for this. But Jamaicans and other individuals from other Caribbean countries or other countries may qualify for other benefits that I listed here today. So remember, work permit, if you qualify for adjustment of status, if you have a US citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse, a parent, or a citizen's son or daughter is 21 and up, you could qualify for this. Now, if your spouse or your parent is a permanent resident, you have to be maintaining your legal status to do adjustment of status and to get the work permit. Remember, adjustment of status is where you are here already and you can apply for permanent residence while you're here. In that case, you may be visiting on a visitor's visa and you just cannot allow the time that you've been allowed to stay here to expire. You have to apply for this before it expires. And here's a very important addition: you need to make sure that your priority date is current. So that's a condition that gets everyone here, is that not only do you have to have the permanent resident or the permanent resident spouse or the parent, but if you're 21 and up, or even under 21, if you have those permanent resident, spouse or parent, you need to make, and you want to stay here to apply for permanent residence and your work permit while you wait, you need to make sure that you meet those two conditions. The priority date is current, and that's usually on the petition that was filed on your behalf. And then you cannot make your status. So if you're here on a visitor's visa, you could apply, just don't make that time pass. On the other hand, if you have a US citizen spouse, if you're under 21 and you have an under 21 and unmarried and you have a US citizen parent, or you are the parent of a US citizen who's age 21 and up, you can only qualify as a parent of a citizen who's age 21 and up, then you could qualify to apply for permanent residence, your work permit, your social security number, your travel document, while being in the United States, even if you're already out of status. Another thing to note, though, is if you've crossed the border without permission, doing the petition through a relative, even if it's a citizen or permanent resident, will not qualify you for this process. However, if you're being mistreated by a US citizen or a legal permanent resident spouse, a parent if you're under 25, or a US citizen son or daughter who's age 18 or over, then you could qualify even if you've crossed the border without permission. So I have given you basically a lot of information regarding ways to qualify for the work permit. It's a lot though, right? And this is why I don't talk about this topic very often on the live, because it's so much information. The best thing you can do is schedule your consultation and for me to evaluate your situation personally to determine whether you qualify. If you've been listening closely, and you can listen again, if any of this, if you can relate to any of what I said, then it's worth it to schedule that consultation and we can talk about your situation to determine whether you qualify, right? But I did give you some gems today. So just listen, re-listen, and then call and schedule a consultation. That's going to be the essential part here in your action, is to make sure that you schedule that consultation to get that evaluation, get that personalized legal advice. Because remember, the information I'm giving you today is very general information. It can get even deeper than that. It's very general information, but it's meant to bring awareness. It's also meant to, empower you with education, but it is not meant to help you to do the process yourself, because it can get complicated and you can find yourself getting into trouble if you try to do this on your own. I do want you to think about whether any of this fits your situation, and then go ahead and get help to move forward, and get that work permit, get your social security, and get a head start on life in the United States. All right. So, follow up with questions, right? That's the best way that you're going to learn and you're going to get the information that you need. So, I am welcoming your questions today. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments. It can be about the work permit, it can be about anything else, anything that's immigration related. Just go ahead and put it in the comments right now, and I will go ahead and answer. I did see one come on here on the on YouTube, and so it says here. So, Madam, how many months take the I-130 spouse visa marriage base? So, if you're outside of the United States and you're waiting for the petition to be approved, right now I'm seeing between 9 months and 12 months to get the approval and for it to be moved to the next step, which would be the National Visa Center. So, it's taking a little longer if you're outside of the United States. I would estimate a time of 18 to 24 months for the spouse visa. So when the petition is approved in the United States, this is if the spouse is outside of the United States, the petition is first approved, give it up to a year, could be a little more, but I'm seeing about 9 months to a year. Then after that, you could be expecting another 6 months to 12 months to get the interview at the embassy and to finally get the immigrant visa to come to the United States. So, all right, put those questions. So on the form I-485, form number 16, if asked, we work without authorization and we have, do I put yes? Too specific, right? Because in some cases, you have to be honest, though, right? But this is where it's important to get legal advice, because I cannot give per specific legal advice on the form. What I will say generally is that you're never going to catch me telling you to say no, or telling my clients to say no when they did indeed, because that equals a lie. And when you put no, when it was yes, because you're in fear that it's going to stop you from getting your permanent residence, then you can face even harsher consequences like misrepresentation or fraud. But here's something that a lot of people don't know, and it's tragic because they don't know this, they tell the lie, and then it can get them into trouble in the future in their application. And it's, if you are doing adjustment of status through a US citizen spouse, a US citizen parent, and you're under 21 and unmarried, or you're the parent of a US citizen who's age 21 and over, and you're applying for adjustment of status on the basis of that spouse as the immediate relative of a US citizen, it will not be used against you, right? But keep in mind, this is only for immediate relatives of US citizens. It's not allowed. Working without a permit is not allowed. That's exactly why they try to make the employment authorization available for individuals to apply while they wait, because they want to discourage working without a permit. They want to make, try to help you. Try to help you transition into the life in the United States. However, if on the other hand, you are here and you're applying, you're either 21 or up, you're and you're applying through a US citizen or legal permanent resident parent, you are the child under 21 and unmarried of a permanent resident, or you're the spouse of a permanent resident, then and you're applying for adjustment of status, working without a permit is not allowed. And yes, it can prevent you from then getting permanent residence in the United States. But it's these types of questions that I cannot answer personally. I can only give you general information. And this is why representation is so important, because these are the types of questions that come up that if you don't know how to answer it and you don't know the legal implications behind answering it, you could get yourself into more problems if you yourself just come to the conclusion that you're going to tell and put information there and without understanding fully how to approach the situation. So um, get legal advice and representation ASAP. It makes a difference. Good day. If you are out of status and want to travel domestically, is it true that as of May 2023, you won't be able to because they will be checking status due to new Real ID law? So they have extended the Real ID law. I believe it's to 2025. So that will not be necessarily affecting those who are traveling without. Without that Real ID identification. All right. Keep putting those questions in the comments. I'm on YouTube and I'm on Instagram today. I talked about ways to get the work permit. It's a lot, right? But I want to educate you about those ways. If you want to see if you personally qualify, this is where it's important to schedule a consultation. You can do that by going to the link in my profile and you'll be able to schedule the appointment there. Now you can also call the office. By the way, my phone number is on every single video. Just call, you'll get through to the scheduling coordinator who will be more than happy to help you get on my schedule so we can determine your qualifications and get started right away. All right. Put those questions in the comments. Hi there. Good afternoon. It's nice to see you on YouTube. All right. I'm keeping an eye on the comments. I'm scrolling through, so get your questions in right now. Perfect. Awesome. So Ricky, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, so how much is the consultation? The consultation is $150 for up to an hour. My consultations are very detailed, and what you're paying for is you're paying for personalized legal advice regarding what your situation is and a detailed evaluation. What I usually do is I meet with the client and I determine what immigration benefits you qualify for. Sometimes individuals do consultations with me and they're thinking one thing. Sometimes they come just trying to figure out if there's a way. They don't know. Sometimes they don't even feel like there's a way, and it turns out there is. That's the purpose of doing a consultation with an attorney, is that you get to understand the options that are available to you based on your particular circumstances. So it's very detailed, and you also get the opportunity to ask your own questions. Oh, awesome. Thanks so much for that on YouTube. I really appreciate that. So so I see 150 I've spent. Don't hesitate, people. I agree. Definitely agree. it's worth it. Um, okay, I see another one. Can you qualify for a work permit while you're on filing? So, if you're outside of the United States, no, you will not apply for a work permit while you're outside of the United States. If you're in the United States and you're being filed for and you're going through adjustment of status, that's where you apply to stay in the United States and do your interview here in the United States and get your permanent resident, then yes, they do give you the opportunity to apply for the work permit while you are going through that filing. But you don't get the work permit, you won't be able to apply for a work permit outside of the United States. How long does a temporary work visa take to process? So it depends. The most common ones are the J1 and the H2B. Those are within, so it runs in cycles. And so the processing time is anywhere from a few months, so 2 to 6 months. But then you have others that are, for example, the H1B. Those also are within a few months. So it depends on the season, but there's the lottery, the time to submit the lottery and make selections. And then there's that cutoff point in October. And so most individuals do get word by that time. But it's so many different work visas. You have the P, you have the O, you have the H1B, you have the H2B, you have the J1. So it's going to depend on the type of temporary visa. If my parents are permanent residents and I'm on asylum pending case, can I file for adjustment of status? So this is where I had mentioned before, it's a complex topic, and you should definitely schedule a consultation for us to understand. But based on this, I'm making an assumption here that if you are applying for asylum, you're in a gray area where you no longer have status. You no longer are within status. Maybe you cross the border without permission, or maybe you cross the border without permission, or maybe you came here on a visa and then, or not necessarily across the border without permission, but you came through the border, or you also maybe entered on a visa and then it expired. So in those cases, you wouldn't usually qualify for adjustment of status. However, there's VAWA as well, right? VAWA is where if you were mistreated by your parents and you're under the age of 21, or under the age of 25, under certain situations, you may still qualify for VAWA relief and then to get adjustment of status at the same time. So this is a complex question, and this is where I'm saying schedule a consultation. Don't go off of assumptions. Don't go off of what your friends are telling you. Don't go off of what you've read, because what you've read, assumptions, even this live, it's going to give you valuable information, but it's not going to be as specific. So I would really want to answer your question in a consultation. What should I take with me for a visitor's visa? So you're going to show any evidence that's going to really show the officer that you intend to you have strong ties to your home country, that you have such a strong commitment to your country that you're going to return, and that the officer, based on the evidence that they've reviewed, they're going to have reassurance of that. So, bring your job letter, bring any, if you're in school, bring your school letter or school verification. If you have future commitments, bring proof of that. Proof that you own property like your home, or any other types of valuable property, bring those as well. If you own a business, make sure you bring your financial documents as well as your proof of ownership of the business. So those are some examples, but keep in mind once again that this is general information. I'm not your attorney and I'm not providing you legal advice. That's where you need to consult an attorney. Is it true that the USCIS fees are rising? So that can happen. There are proposed fees for the future, so we'll have to see what happens there. My cousin was deported from the USA because of overstaying. He got 10 years to return. How can we help him get back here legally and get a work permit? It's going to depend on what his situation is, what was the basis of the deportation, and who does he qualify through? Does he qualify for a waiver to come back, even maybe before the 10 years are up? But that's complex. Anything to do with deportation or criminal conduct, some consequences or past immigration violations, they're going to be more complex, and does take a little more reviewing and follow-up questions to give specific legal advice. But it's not impossible for him to come back. It's just I would have all those follow-up questions. What happened? What was the basis of the deportation? You know, how many years have passed? Who are the relatives in the United States? You said your cousin, but does he have parents? Does he have a spouse? Does he have children here in the United States that could possibly help him to qualify for forgiveness to come back into the United States? The work permit, the thing is, once he gets a waiver approved, if he does qualify for a waiver, then and he comes back into the United States, by that point, he'll definitely be able to qualify for, to work here, because the waiver I'm thinking about is based on permanent residence, or employment-based visas. But I need to understand what the extent of the situation. All right. Great questions. Keep putting those questions in the comments. I am on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, and I'm keeping an eye on both comments. So don't hesitate to put the questions in the comments. Hi there, Denroy. So nice to see you. How long after you submit your paperwork for your spouse, how long after will he get his case number? So it should be a few weeks. It should be anywhere from I've seen a week to 2 weeks. It depends though. Sometimes if you include fee waivers, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't, fee waivers, you don't qualify for fee waivers with a spouse. But with fee waivers, they tend to take longer. But I am seeing anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks to get that receipt notice. Right now, that can always change just depending on what's going on at the USCIS. I heard the TVs that automatically sends you a work permit. Does it send an SSN as well, or do you have to apply? Yes, absolutely. Once you are approved, so when my clients have been approved, sometimes we get the work permit before we even get the approval notice, which is awesome. So you do automatically get the work permit and the social security. So, if you qualify, you should definitely call and let us see. Now, you don't get the work permit until you do get approved. It right now, processing times are taking anywhere from 6 to 18 months. On average, I'm seeing decisions in about 9 to 10 months. So get started on it. Now is the time, because they have changed their policy to be more friendly towards different forms of trafficking, because trafficking comes in different forms. It's not just where someone is kidnapped, and that's a typical perception, and trust me, that does happen, where people are kidnapped, doing errands or on they're out there and they get kidnapped and taken away, and they go through just absolute terror. But then trafficking comes in different forms. And what I like to say here is that if you are in a situation where you feel like you can't get out of it, there's an individual or an employer or a group of people that's driving this fear of you getting out of this situation, and you feel used and abused and forced into this situation, then this could be a form of trafficking. I have seen trafficking, and I've had success even where you've had partners who have been this way. I've seen where for example, I'll give you an example of where the trafficking in regards to an intimate partner or ex-partner can apply here, is where the partner, you come up here, they either smuggle you into the country or they invite you, you come here on a visa, and they, at first, they may promise marriage to get you legal, or they may not promise anything, but when you get here, then they start to turn into a different person and you feel trapped. They may not want you to go out. They may want to maintain control of you. They may force you to do acts against your will, and these include sexual acts, and this may include also working in the house, taking care. I've seen where individuals they're forced here, come here, and they're forced to take care of that person's children. This can be both men and women that are traffickers. It's not just limited to men or anything like that. Men and women, employers, acquaintances, strangers, all of those, regardless of their immigration status, can be the traffickers in this case. But with the intimate partners, where you feel stuck, you feel trapped, you feel forced to stay in the situation, and they force you to do these acts for them, this is a form of trafficking. Another common thing is that they, for example, will take away your passport. If they try to hold on to your passport and prevent you from leaving, that is a type of force. If they are manipulative, if they tell you things like, if you leave, ICE is going to get you. You can't live without me. Or they force you to stay, and then they restrict you mentally, right? They keep you mentally restrained with fear tactics. That can also mean that you have been the victim of trafficking. So go ahead and schedule an appointment. We will talk about your situation and get started right away to apply for your status. I'm getting married, but I live in Jamaica and have a US visa. My soon to be spouse is in New York, and I wanted to get married in Jamaica, but come up to file the paperwork since it would be easier. Do you think it is recommended? Okay, so great question. And there are so many people who are thinking about this. One thing I want everyone to just be careful about is planning to enter the United States with your visa to apply for adjustment of status. If you have that intention as you're walking through the airport and you come onto the other side of the airport, and then the immigration picks up on that, they can consider this misrepresentation and fraud, and it is one of the most severe types of immigration charges that you could have. Usually when a spouse is here in the United States, say visiting their spouse, after they have been here, after they're visiting, maybe after they've entered the United States, it's at that point that they say, you know what, I'm going to stay with my spouse. And they go ahead with the paperwork that way. So you can't have the intention as you're walking in to apply for adjustment of status. So when you come to the US, you can't be filing your papers the day after. That will definitely raise a red flag to the officer. The advantages of applying in the United States versus outside of the United States, the number one advantage is that it's shorter in the United States. You get a head start on life with your spouse in the United States. You get the work permit while you're in the United States, as long as you qualify and you do everything correctly with the adjustment of status process. When your spouse is outside of the United States, that's where it's painful. At this time, it's painfully slow. It's about a 2-year process in Jamaica, 18 months to 2 years to get from beginning to the end of the process in Jamaica. So it's painfully long. You have to deal with being separated from your spouse. And then you have to contend with traveling, right? Because there are certain risks with traveling with a visa at the same time that you have paperwork pending for permanent residence. There are risks that the officer may not like that, and they may turn you back at the airport. There's a low risk, but it does happen in some cases, and it can complicate your case. So great question. Can I get a visiting visa while on filing? It's possible. People have gotten the visitor's visa, but you really have to come good to the officer to convince the officer that you're not at risk for overstaying. Um, and there's no crime, there's no offense in applying for it. Sometimes the officer will even be honest and say, hey, you have this filing, we're not going to give you the visa. But in some cases, where I've seen people successful with a visa despite a filing is where the process is so long that the officer determines that your evidence satisfies the, showing that you have strong ties. And it's so long that they don't think that you're going to come up here and then stay and try to file the papers here. As a matter of fact, they know that that's going to sabotage your process and make it more complex. But that's where I've seen. So where maybe it's a 5 to 7 year process, I've seen where they have granted the visa. But of course, you can still have to come very good with evidence to get the visa. And that's by showing that you have strong ties to your country. All right, great questions. All right, so I see Ricky Flossie, thanks so much here. So best consultation, it was my first time doing a consultation. It's well worth it. People do the consultation, hire attorney Sharifa. Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, what's the processing times you're seeing recently for adjustment of status? So I'm seeing anywhere from the shortest I've seen among my clients is 5 months. And then it's, you can expect up to a year or a little over a year. Where I have seen adjustment of status really get to frustratingly long periods is where they do it themselves. And this, I'm telling you what I have observed from people who have done consultations with me. They usually do these consultations at the point that they're very frustrated about how long the process is taking. I would say adjustment of status that goes anywhere over a year and a half is long, is really long, and longer than what I'm used to. But what I find is they do it themselves, and so there's missing information. Maybe the case because it's been submitted and there's a shortage of information. The officer approaches it with is more skeptical about the validity of the application and the eligibility of the applicants. And then they issue a request for evidence. And this can go on and on. Sometimes it results in extended investigation or administrative background checks. And so that can lead to longer processing times. So this is where you will always hear me preaching that it's so important to present an exceptional application from the get-go. How long does it take after the adjustment of status through family spouse case after biometrics is done? So it's hard to say after the biometrics. Biometrics are all over the place, but the shortest I've seen is 5 months among my clients. Happy New Year, Anna. So nice to see you. And Happy New Year, everyone. I just jumped straight into the live that I was so excited about the topic. I did not wish you all a Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Wishing you all the best. And I really hope I can be a part of your successful immigration journey. All right. I am going to head out. I am going to be back tomorrow. I'm really working hard to be here Mondays to Fridays at around noon. And so I'm going to be here tomorrow at noon to be able to come with another topic and then answer your questions again. These were all great questions. I appreciate it greatly. Now, remember that to get personalized legal advice, you need to schedule a consultation. It's really easy to schedule the consultation. My phone number is on all my videos. You can go to the link in the profile on the About page on YouTube, or you can go on the link on Instagram, and it's going to give you everything you need to get in touch with me. So go ahead and schedule that appointment, and I can do a personal evaluation to determine whether you qualify, and we will get started as soon as we determine you qualify. Thanks so much for the love on both YouTube and on Instagram. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye bye.